I do feel that we are faced with challenges in our life, and some of these challenges come when we're older, and they're put forward before us to grow from. And
Exactly.
like, you got to jump in and you got to go for it. You got to make it work.
Hey everyone, I'm Angeline Constantinou, and this is Her Unapologetic Voice. This podcast was created for women who lead but are done leading from apology. Here we have real, unfiltered conversations about boundaries, truth, and confidence. The kind of talks that remind you your voice is not something you find once, it's something you build. Every episode will give you something real to take with you, whether it's a boundary script, a reflection tool, or simply the courage to say what you really mean. So if you're ready to lead from your truth, not from approval, this is your space. Your unapologetic voice starts here. Welcome back to Her Unapologetic Voice podcast, the podcast where we break the silence, reclaim our power, and step boldly into the next chapter of who we are becoming. I'm your host, Angeline Constantinou, and today's episode is going to be a major game changer for any woman navigating narcissistic abuse and considering her next move, because let's just be honest here. Divorce isn't emotional. And today I am joined by an incredible woman with whom I had the pleasure of meeting 3 weeks ago at the Tampa event. This was the book launch of Breaking the Silence, Volume 4. And CF Micky is an amazing woman. So she is going to be sharing her story today. And about CF Micky, aka Katie, okay, she is a survivor of a 33-year narcissistic marriage with another 6+ years in the court system fighting for her freedom and harvesting her share of the farm business that she and Brent built. Katie is the author of Cultivating Freedom, just launched this year, and is one of the authors in a compilation book, She Thrives. Katie is a best-selling author on Amazon, is embarking on a mission of educating on narcissism through podcasts and speaking, which is why Katie is here today. You will find her living and working on her grain-producing farm in Canada, enjoying her 6 grandchildren. So without further ado, welcome to the stage. I always like to say that, and welcome to my podcast. It's such an honor and pleasure to have you here. And we had the pleasure of meeting, it was 3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, already.
Unbelievable. This is the power of the internet. The power of making connections, social media. So we met at the book launch event, which was a true success. And you shared your story. You know, I was just going through your stories. Please share your story, the backstory of what happened and decisions that you had to make, because you were in a 33-year narcissistic marriage.
Yeah,
So,
at the time, I didn't have a name for it. I didn't really know what was going on. I knew in my first year of marriage that there was something wrong with my husband. There was incidences with paranoia flaring up, and I knew at that point, with his rage and where his mindset, that things were not normal. And we ended up I had a child from a previous relationship, and we had another 2 together, and raising the kids, the whole time searching, trying to put the pieces together as to where his head was at and what was really going on. I didn't really have any answers or a name for it until our 28th year of marriage.
You were in this marriage, like often people will ask, well, why did you stay?
We had a really rough spell, probably 8-9 years into the marriage, 10 years around there. And I was really low mentally. There was a whole year where I cried. I would wait till he goes to bed, come out to the living room, cry. I'm trying to figure and sort my life out. At that time, I was working part-time off the farm. I found myself crying all the way to work. And then at work, it was my escape from him. And I finally came to the conclusion that I had no choice but to stay. I couldn't put my kids and let him have them 50% of the time.
Right.
I knew his head was not right, but yet I wasn't naive as to what the courts would do,
Okay.
because they
Got it.
portray one side outside the home and then it's a different life inside the home. So at that time, I came to the thought that I have no choice. I have to stay. I have to be able to shield my kids as much as I can and to do the best job that I can to give them a start and know what kind of partner that they really want.
Right, exactly. So basically, it was because of the kids
Yeah.
and navigating through all that. Because a lot of people will ask, like, I don't know. It's like for me, I was in my marriage for 23 years, no children.
Yeah.
But they gradually unmask, meaning like everything's hunky dory, like, you know what I mean? And they put on this persona and then all of a sudden they take off the mask, but it's gradually.
Well, I found it kind of interesting because when I did leave, I think it shocked a lot of the community. They had no idea. But then I did have other community members come up to me after the fact. And in the grocery store, the one person said, you know, he's always been different. And I said, I know that. I said, I'm fine with different. I'm not fine with abuse.
Exactly. It's one thing if you're different, and I agree with you. One thing if you're different, because, you know, sometimes there's a saying that they say opposites attract, but I can see that from this conversation, which is fine. And I recall that when you were writing your story in the book here, that he had issues with paranoia. Can you tell us about that?
We weren't even married the first year, and already the shield was coming down. The mask was slowly slipping, and he always criticized my driving. So I thought, I had to go pick him up from the field. I had my 4-year-old daughter with me, and he was standing a distance away from the tractor. And I thought, well, I'll slip in between him and the tractor, and he can hop in the driver's side. And then I don't have to listen to him complain about my driving. I came to the field, and he ran for the tractor. So then he hopped in the driver's side.
What?
And his body went stiff, and his head is just about at the roof of the truck, and he's hollering, you tried running me over, you tried running me over. And I sat there and I started to laugh, because do you know how ridiculous that sounds?
Oh, yeah.
We're not even married a year. There was instances like that. And, you know, even when I started the divorce process, my one daughter was driving me in, and I had everything itemized and put out, you know, for the lawyer. And I said to her, I said, do you remember that? And she said, I couldn't forget that. She said, Mom, I was scared. 4 years old she was when that happened.
See, and kids don't forget.
No.
Oh, no, they don't forget that. I mean, that's traumatic. I mean, speaking of criticizing of driving, he would criticize my driving. And it was like not much later, like after like 5 years or something. Like we're in Washington, D.C., right? And I'm driving and I'm doing the best I can. He like grabbed the wheel, or he grabbed my hand and he said, pull over, I'll drive. And I'm like, oh my God. I didn't forget that.
It's funny because even over time, like he had a couple of eye diseases. Our one daughter was in college and we were in the city driving, and out of the blue, he said, I don't even know why I'm driving. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, I can't see the speedometer. I have no idea how fast I'm going or what the speed limit is. And I'm like, then why are you driving?
Yeah.
So at our next stop, I popped in and started driving. So I did a lot of the driving from then on when we were together. And, you know, even in the wintertime, sometimes out on the farm, he would say, you have to drive. I can't see.
See?
So he kind of had to get used to my driving.
There you go.
There you go.
And I can guarantee that you're a much better driver too. So
I do have experience driving the school bus and the tandem trucks and the combines. It's not like I don't know how to drive.
Right, exactly. And I know how to drive too. I know that in your 28th year of marriage, you started to seek help from medical professionals.
Yes.
Tell us about that, and then how, you know, narcissistic personality disorder. Let's talk about that, because I recall that you had rediscovered, or that you had determined, or through medical professionals determined, that he had narcissistic personality disorder. Actually similar, my ex-partner had that too.
Yes.
So what prompted you to do that? That was
Well,
the 28th year of marriage. What was, I would say, that moment, that breaking point?
well, I think we can both agree that you can't get them to the doctor unless they want to go to the doctor. It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Exactly.
So one fall, he's sitting at the table in the kitchen and he said, I'm depressed. And I said, I know you're depressed. He said, but I can't fix your problem. I said, you have to do that on your own. And so he said, well, make me a doctor's appointment. So I did. And I drove him into the city for the doctor's appointment. They called his name and he got up and he looked at me and he said, well, aren't you coming? And I said, only if you want me to. And he said, I want you to. And I know this is going to be thrown back in my face. So anyways, we get into the doctor's office and he looks at me and he said, well, what do I tell him? I said, I want you to be honest. That's why we're here. Let's get this fixed. The doctor come in and then the doctor looked at me and he said, now don't you be doing his survey for him. He said, you sit over there in the corner. So he was filling out the survey on the computer. And as he's filling it out, he looks at me and he said, this doesn't look good. And I said, I don't care. I said, let's just get this fixed.
That's
so
right.
The doctor came in and he read it and he looked at me and he said, have you ever felt a fear for your life? I said, no.
Wow.
But I lied. I didn't want my husband knowing what I was afraid of. Because I knew he would use it against me in the end.
Right.
So the doctor put him on medication and then he warned him not to go off the medication once he's feeling better. And then we were to go back in 6 weeks for assessment. We went back in 6 weeks for assessment. And the first thing the doctor said was, I could not let you leave without medicating you. And at that time, he doubled his medication. It was really hard not to break down in tears because I thought 28 years of marriage and we're finally getting help. But as time progressed, he went off of his medication and the doctor had me coming in once a month to report to him on what was going on. And so finally the doctor said, I'm pretty sure he's NPD, but he needs assessment in order to determine that.
Right.
And he would never go for an assessment because there's nothing wrong with him. It's always everybody else.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. We did have one meeting with the doctor with Brent and I in there and discussing the medication because it does affect the libido. And I encouraged him to stay on the medication because I felt that I could actually maybe start talking to him. And then he was upset with me because I was trying to keep him drugged. So what do you do? I knew it was going to fly back in my face. He went off medication and that's how that went about. And it's funny because I didn't know what NPD was.
Okay.
I'd been previously seeing a counselor probably about a year before we started this with the doctor. And so I Googled it when I was waiting for my appointment. And I just broke out crying in the truck because it wasn't one or two traits. It was all 10.
Exactly. Yes.
And yeah, the doctor can treat the depression part of NPD, but he can't treat NPD.
How can you treat it? I mean, you can't.
No. So that's where, and I would go to the counselor and I'd say, do you want to come with me? Well, why would I go? There's nothing wrong with me. The path was getting laid. I knew where I was and I knew where I stood.
There you go. There you go. Did you ever go for couples counseling?
Yes, we did. Halfway through our marriage, we went. I felt really good about it, but he didn't. I felt that I was getting heard.
There you go. Because some women don't feel that way. Because that was me, actually. Like, I went for couples counseling and I didn't feel that I was being seen and heard. It was all about him.
Yeah. Well, there was an instant that happened in our life. That's when I had that really low year. And then he wanted the counselor to force me to agree with him that what he did was right. And at the end of the session, I looked at him and I said, no, what you did was wrong. I said, and I'm not agreeing to that. And the counselor finally said, we have to agree to disagree on this topic. And so then after, in 2017 in December, he threatened to shoot our son and put him 10 feet under. And I confronted him about this, and he started laughing. And he said, Katie, you don't think I'd do that, do you? And I looked at him and I said, the words came out of your mouth. What is going through your head? And the minute I said that, then he started to cry. He wanted to go to the marriage counselor.
Yeah, see?
So,
See?
and honestly, at that point, I told him I was done. I was done, but I would try. You know, we went to the doctor. The doctor referred us and gave us a business card. And then he goes to hand me the business card. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, here, you phone and make the appointment. I said, no. I said, I will go if you look after it. Because he would have everybody spinning in circles and sit back and say yay or nay. And I thought, if there's any chance of this working, he's the one that's got to put in the work. Second session in, like for the first session, I had to work on my criticizing, which she's right. And I had to call her halfway through the week and then go back with Brent at the end of the week. And he was supposed to read all he could on stonewalling and do the same, phone her halfway through the week.
Right.
So we go back in for the second session and she's asking me, and well, yeah, I am guilty of that. And so I'm telling her the different instances where I kind of had to bite my tongue. And she said, she looked at him and said, and how did you make out? She asked the question 3 times and he sat back like this, never responded. You're stonewalling the counselor. So anyways, at that point, she took me over to another room and she said, you seem to understand your husband's mental condition.
Yeah.
And I said, I do. And she said, you better figure it out because it's only going to get worse. After that, we went down to office store and I bought a journal and I journaled in it every night. Dates, times, names, everything that went down. Because I knew when it goes to court, it's a he say, she say. I needed something to back up what was going on.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because I did the same thing. I documented. I bought a journal and I was writing every single night. Or like if something happened, I would write it down so I wouldn't forget. See, that was a good move. He say, she say, there you go, court.
You know, and really, they can, outside the home, you might think that they're the nicest man around. I thought I married a prince. I saw the way he treated his mom and everything, and I'm like, wow, he's going to look after me. He's going to care for me.
I'm like, because that's like the same with me. Now, his mom was not alive at this point for me, but like his dad, like he would, you know, take care of his dad. Like we, you know, we would cook and we would have a meal together. You know, we weren't living with him, but we would have a meal together. Yeah. But it was like, what happened? I'm like, unbelievable. You know, like they put on this persona. I'll take care of you, this and that. But then behind closed doors, it doesn't work that way. How and when was the time that you realized that you had to make a plan and leave?
Well, after that marriage counselor, that when I bought the journal, I journaled in it for about a year. That was in February. And then in November, our daughter got married. And so we went as a family over. It was a destination wedding. And there was some instances over there on how he was treating me. And then we came back and I had my mom with me because we were going to go pick up my brother's dog because he was going to go work in Northwest Territories for a couple months. My mom is 75 at that time. So I'll drive you and we'll get the dog for you and stuff. And my family was never allowed a dog in the house, but yet his friends and families, their dogs were allowed in the house. And I have to say at this time, in my mindset, I'm detached. I'm done.
Right.
And this dog had a lot of anxiety issues to begin with. I said to Mom, just keep the dog with you in the bedroom and then he'll be fine. So in the morning, Mom took the dog out on a leash to go to the washroom first thing. She's in her pajamas outside. At the end of November, it's wintertime. I'm holding my dog in the garage so that she doesn't go after the other dog. And the back door opened and he reached down, one hand on my throat.
Oh.
threatening to make my face bloody. I never said anything. I didn't want to provoke the situation. He went in the house. He went to the front door, locked my mom outside.
Oh my gosh.
And so then when I went into the house, I was met with another hand on my throat and the fist is back. At that point, mom just came in, changed, and left right away. And that was the determining factor. Like, I've already got just about a year's worth of documentation. I started shopping for a lawyer before that.
Right. Okay.
We had Christmas and another family celebration, and then that's when papers are going to be filled out.
There you go. There you go. See, you had to make a plan. Like
Yeah.
You have to. Yeah, you have to.
It's not a normal breakup.
There you go.
You know,
People don't realize that. Like, you'll hear, oh, we went our separate ways, but it doesn't work that way. Everyone.
No.
It doesn't. It's a process.
No. Well, they're very vindictive. They want to destroy you.
Tell me about it.
The one day, like, it went, and I have to say, once they start detaching, it is a real eye-opener as for how cruel they can actually be. Like, I was already in my own bedroom for over 2 years, and if the TV quit working, he'd come into my bedroom 11 o'clock at night, flick the lights on. It was my job to get out and get that TV working for him. There was a lot going on behind the scenes. And of course, he's driving the semi with no license because he's got his license pulled because he can't see. And the doctor's telling me to phone and report him every time. Otherwise, I'm held liable. That means I could be sued if he hits somebody or runs over somebody and I lose my retirement. There was a lot happening in our house.
But to endure that for so long.
And I guess the one time when I went to see the counselor and I'm telling her what's going on, she said to me, you would sacrifice yourself for your children. And I just responded, of course I would. Like, I'm a mom, anything for my kids. I'd be there to protect them and look after them. But I didn't realize the full meaning of sacrifice until months after I left. On how living with that he rewires your brain. You're mentally abused, and you have to go through everything to figure out why and how. Like, why am I getting triggered? Why am I at the brink all of a sudden wanting to cry? I've never felt that way. I've never had anxiety. There was a lot that I had to learn how to deal with. After the fact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially when children are involved.
Yeah.
And I commend you. I mean, that's a long time to endure that. Have you ever felt like you lost yourself somewhere along the way? Maybe through heartbreak, divorce, trauma, people pleasing, or constantly pouring into everyone else while forgetting you. My coaching program is designed to help women reconnect with who they truly are, rebuild their confidence, heal emotionally, and step into the next chapter of their life with clarity, purpose, and self-worth. So today we work on mindset, identity, emotional healing, confidence, boundaries, self-care, self-love, and creating a life that finally feels aligned with the woman that you're becoming. And if you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or simply ready for more, I'd love to invite you to book a virtual coffee chat with me. No pressure, just a real conversation to connect, share your journey, and see how I can support you. Tell us about your book. Yeah, because to me, that's so inspiring that you found joy on the other side. How does one, you stepped into your purpose?
I certainly did. Like, this path, I was meant for this path. It was a challenge put in front of me to learn from and to do better and help others.
Right.
This book started out as journaling because the counselor's encouraging me to journal. She said, you can't get over narcissistic abuse if you're still married. She said, you come and visit me once a month. She said, take the bricks out of your backpack and go back for another round. Wow. That was going on for 7 years.
Wow.
And she was after me to journal. I started journaling, and then I joined a writing group and with Heather Andrews. And I met a bunch of wonderful people in that group. And the one person that was running the group, he said, "Send me what you got." And I said, "Okay." I sent him what I wrote. And he got back to me and he said, "I felt your pain. I feel your pain." So then I thought, well, maybe I am on the right track with writing. And I didn't want to write a book that was a whiny book. I wanted to write an educational book that would help people know the
Right. There we go.
signs
There we
and
go.
examples and terminology and what I did to get through what I did. And so that's where the book came about. But I have to say, when I started writing this, I'm kind of thinking, why did I ever let this happen? I'm a strong person. How did this ever happen to me?
Right.
And that took me back to my childhood to go through everything to see where my boundaries were dropped. And
Okay.
because I do believe your childhood sets a tone for your adult life.
And actually, I agree with you. I was just going to say that. I was just people pleasing. Like for me, it was shrinking myself.
Yeah.
God rest my parents' soul. But, you know, I was raised in a strict Greek Orthodox family. So, oh, yeah, we were taught to say yes, no matter what, even if it didn't feel good inside of your body. No wonder I attracted a narcissist. But anyhow, I had to navigate that and peel back, you know, hire a mentor and peel back the layers. And you talk about peeling back the onion. Let's talk about that.
Well, you know, there's so many different intricate layers to narcissism. And I had to figure out what pertained to him and what was going on. And the more I learned, the more from the knowledge of living with him for 33 years, I honestly believe he was a dark tetrad. And that is a malignant narcissist.
Right.
And he had all four facets. He had the Machiavellism, where he will do anything he needs to do to get what he wants. The narcissism, where he's grandiose, he's told entitled, like he's entitled to treat you that way.
Say
You know?
entitlement. There you go.
Yeah. Psychopathy, where he's callous, he lacks empathy, he doesn't have the feeling that, you know, that gut feeling that you get, like, ooh, this is wrong, or ooh, I shouldn't have done that. He does not have that.
Right.
And his social behavior, he always relied on me for going to crowds and kind of breaking the ice and meeting people.
Right.
And the sadism, enjoying pain or inflicting pain on others. Like, I would tell him some hardships that my family were going through, and he would start smirking and he would smile like he's getting enjoyment out of somebody else's hardships. I just thought to myself, who are you? Who really are you? So, you know, and I have to say, in going through all of this and what I've learned, I had to learn how to let him go. I had to learn how to let him go so he wasn't affecting my life.
There you go.
Will I ever forgive him? No, I don't think I will. He knew what he was doing. He would deliberately be mean and smile. He knew what he was doing. I've learned how to let him go and how he does not affect my life anymore. And the one thing that I had to learn is I had to train my brain to overcome my fears.
There you go. Rewire the brain.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to these people, and I have learned how to let them go. Do I feel sorry for him? Yeah, maybe sometimes I do, because he's got a very dark future. But, you know, like, I get the simple joy out of, you know, whatever I have, or doing things with the kids or the grandkids. But for him, it's never enough. He never has enough money. He never has enough status. He never has enough. Well, I have enough. I'm very happy with how I'm living.
Sure. Me too.
But he'll never have enough.
No, he's operating from a place of scarcity. That's why.
Yeah.
About not having enough. And does he see your kids, or?
Some of the kids have something to do with him, but I mean, they're all adults and they all see.
Oh, good. Okay. So they all see it. Okay.
I know I had the one child when I was still living at home at the farm. She followed me into the bedroom and said, if you don't get out of here, she said, you're going to be in a nursing home before you know it. And my response was, I cannot leave unless I've exhausted all avenues to help your dad. Like, I still put him first. Even after leaving our first 2 years in the courts, all my decisions was, no, I don't want to fight over the equipment. Let him pick his equipment. And I was trying to avoid confrontation, whereas he was very vindictive and he was getting back at me for leaving. And I do feel that some of his actions educated the courts. Because face it, when you're divorcing these people, you know them. You know them inside and out.
Well, sure you do.
They don't know you because their life has never been around about you. It's always been about them and what you can do for them. That's where your mindset has to kind of change and say, hey, no, I know this guy. I've got the upper hand here. I know what he's going to do. Just sit back and it'll happen.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See that? And I know that you write in your book here, in order for new beginnings to happen, you have to let go of the toxic environments, and you have done that. Yeah. So for a woman who is watching, who will be watching and listening to this podcast episode, what advice would you give her?
I would say, if you don't leave, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But if you leave and do the hard work, there is light. And you do have a life to live. It's how do you want to live? Do you want to live in survival mode or do you want to live? Because
life is worth living. And there's only so much that you can stay in survival mode.
It affects everything, you know. And one of the questions was, the counselor kept asking me if I had stomach problems. And I said to her, why? No, I don't. Like, why are you asking me that?
Right.
And she said, when your body is under stress, it withholds the electrolytes going into your stomach. So you only have acid going in there, and that's how ulcers are formed.
See that? Of course. There you go.
Know? And I'm like, well, my daughter got me on this electrolyte drink. And she said, well, that's probably saving your stomach.
Sure, there you go.
There's little things throughout that you do learn.
Exactly.
A half an hour of exercise a day is equivalent to taking depression meds.
There you go. Thank God I do not take meds.
Yeah, me neither.
It's a blessing. I meditate. Like, I have a morning routine. I meditate, I pray, I journal, I exercise. I was just out for a walk about an hour ago and planning to do Zumba later, because exercise releases those feel-good endorphins. So you don't need medication.
No, it's important for you with your body to get moving. And I do believe faith is very important too.
Thank you. Me too.
I do believe when you have faith, you have like a comforting blanket around you.
There you go.
Yeah,
absolutely. Lean into faith. I leaned into God, and I got rebaptized actually last year. Talk about releasing everything that happened in the past in my life. It was a bold declaration of faith. How did you meet Michelle Jewsbury?
Actually, I was in the writing group with Stephanie Ann, and we were writing our books through Heather Andrews. She had put her post on when she was in volume 3, and Michelle was looking for writers. I approached her and we had a Zoom meeting, and that's when I got on board.
That's great. I actually interviewed Michelle Jewsbury 4 years ago.
Oh, did you?
On my podcast, working on bringing her back. She's a phenomenal woman. I mean, what she endured and what she accomplished, we can all do this, ladies.
Well, yeah.
You don't have to be stuck in survival mode forever. And just being stuck there that's not living. That's not living. And you have to put in the work. Like, I was very happy to put in the work. Trust me.
Yeah.
The inner work, the shadow work. Yeah, the reprogramming, everything. I hired a mentor and I paid him at that time $3,000 to do all this work, and it paid off.
Yeah.
And I still have a mentor. I have a mentor. So it's important to have that. But joining a writing group, that fascinates me.
Oh, yeah. Actually, once a week, we would have Zoom meetings and would all be in there. And we got to be such good friends. We still kind of meet together. Heather has monthly meetings and going on in Calgary. I'm hoping to make the May meeting and Just
Sure.
you meet a lot of inspiring people, and it takes the fear out of what you are doing.
Exactly. Absolutely. And for years, I had writer's block. But then when I started my podcast 7 years ago, Let's Break the Silence, and now we have Her Unapologetic Voice, which is a spinoff, real, raw, unfiltered conversations. Like I just wrote an article for Brains Magazine because I just became an
Yes.
executive contributor. So I just wrote it. Everything just comes out. So,
Yeah. Actually, they ended up reaching out to me, wanting me to be a part of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think Cultivating Freedom recently won an award through the American Legacy Award for
Yes.
self-help relationships. I think that's where they saw that.
Because they saw me too and they reached out to me. So I said, yes,
Yeah.
why not?
Oh yeah, exactly. We all work together.
We all work together. Like some people, oh, what's the ROI? It's not about the ROI, everyone. And if you do get it, fine. But this is about, because things have changed, things have shifted in this industry. It's about creating impact over income. The money will come, but first you have to create impact and share your story because others will be inspired. I wrote my first article.
And that's where I would prefer to do more writing. I'm kind of working on just the writing part and getting somebody else to do all the other.
Right.
Yeah, I do enjoy podcasts because then it gets the awareness out, and that's one thing that in the writing group they said, "Do you know how many people are going through this right now?" And they said, "Do you know how you could help them?" When I look at it, I lived 28 years like that before I had a name. And I don't know. I feel that it's on the incline.
Right.
If I can help and enlighten other people, then, honestly, if I knew what I was dealing with, I would have handled my marriage much differently.
Exactly.
But I will say one method that I got very good at in my marriage was gray rocking, where you show no emotion, no reaction. It's like you pack your emotions in a bag, leave it at the door. And I honestly believe that even when I got into the courts and some of the different processes like discovery, where his lawyer's asking me questions, you could tell he was trying to get me flustered. Like his arms would be in the air and his face would be red and it go on this kind of little rant. And I was so confused. I just sat there and I just looked at him. And then I waited till he was done. And it'd say, "Well, isn't that how it happened?" And I'd say, "No, it isn't."
Yeah.
And I had dates, times, names, and then it go, I'm sorry. And honestly, I have to say, after the binding trial, he reached across the table and shook my hand. And he said, "It's good to see you again."
Wow.
And my brief for the binding trial was probably 6 to 7 times as thick as what Brent's was. There was a lot of information Brent was not telling his lawyer. I took that as a win because I've been in the room several times with him before and he couldn't be bothered shaking my hand.
There you go. Yeah. See, we are approaching the top of the hour. Where can people reach you?
You can look for me on cultivatingfreedom.ca is my website. On Instagram, Cultivating Freedom 2024. And that has my email and everything on there.
Okay. And all these links will be in the show notes. I'm just so happy and blessed that you were a guest on my podcast shows. This episode will be released probably in a couple of weeks or so. Probably, I would say 2 weeks. What's a special message that you would like to share with the audience? My audience is primarily women. So high functioning women, divorced women, women who have overcome narcissistic abuse. And what's the special encouraging message that you would like to share to close this episode out?
Don't let fear control your life. Do not be afraid. Even if it's a tiny baby step forward, it's a step forward. Do not let fear, because fear will hold you back from a wonderful life.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And for being on my podcast show. And we had the pleasure of meeting 3 weeks ago in Tampa at the book launch event. There's some videos out there, so go take a look. I forgot to mention, thank you for taking the video of me.
Anytime.
That was great. I mean, I'm just like, who's going to video this now? Because I didn't bring anyone. There was a friend who was supposed to come with me, but she couldn't make it. So, but that's okay. But thank you so much for taking the video. And I love what you're doing. And just everything about your story is very inspiring, very motivating, and just a lot of lessons learned from this marriage, that you had to endure, and you put your kids first. And oh my God, amazing. You're amazing.
Well, I do feel that we are faced with challenges in our life, and some of these challenges come when we're older, and they're put forward before us to grow from. And you got to jump in and you got to go for it, and you got to make it work
And take the leap of faith. Everyone.
Yeah.
Well, if today's episode spoke to you, I want you to know this, that you don't have to navigate this alone. Okay. So whether you're in the middle of a transition, a divorce, or stepping into your next chapter, this is your invitation to reclaim your voice, your identity, and your power. So please be sure to subscribe to Her Unapologetic Voice. We are on YouTube, and we are also on Instagram. And please share this episode with a woman who needs to hear this powerful interview today and this message. And if you're ready for deeper support, I invite you to connect with me directly, because your next chapter is waiting for you. And it starts the moment that you decide to choose yourself. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Her Unapologetic Voice. Every conversation here is meant to help you build confidence from the inside out and find strength in your own words. If today's message resonated, follow the show and share it with a friend who's ready to lead from who she truly is. You can also connect with me on social media at Her Unapologetic Voice Podcast for updates and behind the scenes insights. Remember, confidence begins when you stop apologizing for your truth and start speaking from it. I'm Angeline Constantinou, and I will see you in the next episode.